Steps toward something new. Chapter 1: A Collision of Worlds. Maya Thompson loved her life. She had a great job as a corporate lawyer in the heart of Chicago, a close-knit family, and a circle of friends who kept her grounded. Sure, her love life was a bit of a mess, but that was by choice. She wasn't interested in settling down, and she certainly wasn't interested in anything serious. She liked her independence, her freedom to date casually, and her ability to walk away when things got too complicated. But all of that changed the day she literally collided with someone who would turn her world upside down. It was a typical Monday morning, and Maya was rushing to court, her mind already focused on the case she was about to argue. She was confident she'd win, she always did, but that didn't stop her from mentally running through her arguments as she crossed the lobby of her office building. She was halfway across the marble floor when a woman, walking backward and waving at someone in the coffee shop, stepped directly into her path. Maya tried to sidestep, but it was too late. The woman crashed into her, sending Maya stumbling and nearly toppling over. "Whoa," the woman exclaimed, grabbing Maya's arm to steady her. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there." Maya regained her balance, but not before hearing the unmistakable snap of her heel breaking. She looked down in horror at her brand new shoes she had bought just 2 weeks ago, and saw that one of the heels was dangling uselessly. "You broke my heel," Maya blurted out, her voice sharper than she intended. The woman's face fell, her eyes wide with guilt. "Oh no, I did. I'm really sorry. That's totally my fault." Maya sighed, bending down to inspect the damage. "I have a court appearance in less than an hour, and now I don't have any shoes." The woman bit her lip, clearly feeling terrible. "I really am sorry. I wasn't paying attention. Can I help?" "Maybe I can." Maya cut her off, her frustration getting the better of her. "Unless you have a spare pair of shoes in my size, I don't see how you can help." The woman blinked, then looked down at her own feet. "What size are you?" Maya frowned, not sure where this was going. 8. The woman's face lit up. "Me too. Here, take mine." Before Maya could protest, the woman slipped off her black flats and pushed them toward her. "I've got another pair of shoes at my desk. You can borrow these for now." Maya stared at the shoes, then back at the woman. "I can't wear your shoes." "That's weird." The woman shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It's either that or you go to court barefoot. Your choice." Maya hesitated, but she knew the woman was right. She couldn't show up to court without shoes, and there was no time to go back to her office and find a replacement pair. With a sigh, she slipped into the borrowed flats. "Thank you," Maya muttered, still feeling a little awkward about the whole situation. The woman grinned. "No problem. Just return them when you're done. I work on the 3rd floor, office right in front of the elevator. Ask for Riley." Maya nodded, still a little dazed by the encounter. "Okay. Thanks, Riley." With that, Riley gave her a quick wave and disappeared into the elevator, leaving Maya standing in the middle of the lobby, holding her broken heels and wearing someone else's shoes. Chapter 2: A Second Encounter. Maya made it to court on time, and despite the strange start to her morning, she won her case. But as she walked back to her office, her mind kept drifting back to the woman she had bumped into, Riley. There was something about her, something that had stuck with Maya even after the chaos of the courtroom. Maybe it was the way Riley had handled the situation with such ease, or maybe it was the fact that she had been so quick to offer help, even though Maya had been less than polite. Whatever it was, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to return the shoes and properly thank her. Later that afternoon, Maya found herself standing in front of the office Riley had mentioned. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Come in," a voice called from inside. Maya pushed the door open and stepped into a bright, airy office. Riley was sitting at her desk, typing away on her computer. When she looked up and saw Meyer, her face broke into a wide smile. "Hey. You made it," Riley said, standing up and walking over to greet her. Meyer held up the shoes. "I came to return these. And to apologize for being so, well, rude earlier." Riley waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry about it. I get it, stressful morning, broken shoes, court appearance. I would have been grumpy too." Meyer smiled, feeling a little more at ease. "Still, I appreciate you helping me out. I don't know what I would have done without these." Riley grinned. "Glad I could save the day." There was a brief pause, and Meyer found herself glancing around the office, taking in the framed blueprints on the walls and the model buildings on the shelves. "You're an architect?" Meyer asked, gesturing to the blueprints. Riley nodded. "Yep. I design commercial buildings mostly. It's a lot of work, but I love it." Meyer raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's really cool. I've always admired people who can create things like that." Riley shrugged, but there was a hint of pride in her smile. "Thanks. It's definitely a challenge, but it's worth it when you see the finished product." They stood there for a moment, the conversation flowing easily between them. Meyer hadn't expected to feel so comfortable around Riley, but there was something about her that made it easy to talk. Maybe it was her laid-back attitude, or maybe it was the fact that she didn't seem to take herself too seriously. "Well," Meyer said after a while, "I should probably get back to work. But thanks again for the shoes. I owe you one." Riley smiled, her eyes twinkling. "You can buy me a coffee sometime. We'll call it even." Meyer laughed. "Deal." Chapter 3: A Growing Friendship. Over the next few weeks, Meyer and Riley's paths crossed more often. It started with the coffee Meyer had promised, but soon they were meeting up regularly, grabbing lunch, chatting about work, and even going for the occasional after-work drink. Meyer found herself looking forward to their time together. Riley was easy to be around, and their conversations were always light and fun. But there was also something deeper there, something that Meyer couldn't quite put her finger on. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Meyer and Riley found themselves sitting in a small cafe, sipping on lattes and talking about everything from architecture to travel. "You know," Riley said, leaning back in her chair, "I never thought I'd end up in Chicago. I always imagined I'd live somewhere quieter, like a small town or something." Meyer raised an eyebrow. "Really? You don't strike me as the small-town type." Riley laughed. "Yeah, I guess I'm not. But there's something appealing about the idea of a slower pace, you know. Less noise, less chaos." Meyer nodded, though she couldn't imagine living anywhere but the city. "I get that. But I think I'd go crazy without the hustle and bustle." Riley smiled, her eyes softening. "Yeah, I can see that about you. You thrive on the energy." Meyer felt a warmth spread through her chest at Riley's words. It was strange, she had never really thought about how other people saw her, but hearing Riley's observations made her feel seen. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the cafe buzzing around them. Meyer glanced at Riley, her mind racing with thoughts she hadn't allowed herself to fully explore. She had always been so sure of who she was, of what she wanted. But now, with Riley in her life, things felt different. She felt different. And for the first time in a long time, Meyer wasn't sure what to do about it. Chapter 4: A Leap of Faith. As the weeks turned into months, Meyer's feelings for Riley grew stronger. It wasn't something she had planned, and it certainly wasn't something she had ever expected. But there it was, this undeniable connection, this pull towards someone who had started out as a stranger and had quickly become one of the most important people in her life. But with those feelings came fear. Meyer had never been in a serious relationship, and she had certainly never considered the possibility of being with a woman. It was new, unfamiliar territory, and it scared her. One evening, as they sat on a park bench overlooking the city skyline, Maya finally worked up the courage to say what had been on her mind for weeks. "Riley," she began, her voice hesitant, "can I ask you something?" Riley turned to her, her expression open and curious. "Of course." Maya took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. Have you ever thought about us? About more than just friends?" Riley's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't look surprised. Instead, she smiled softly, her gaze steady. "Yeah, I have." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "You have?" Riley nodded, her smile widening. "I've been waiting for you to bring it up, actually." Maya let out a nervous laugh, relief flooding through her. "I didn't know how to. I've never felt this way before." Riley reached over, gently taking Maya's hand in hers. "It's okay. We don't have to rush anything. We can figure it out together." Maya looked down at their intertwined hands, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions, fear, excitement, hope. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she was willing to take a leap of faith. And as she sat there, hand in hand with Riley, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Maya realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Chapter 5: Navigating New Territory. The days following that conversation on the park bench were a whirlwind of emotions for Maya. She had taken the leap, admitted her feelings, and Riley had been there to catch her. But now came the hard part, figuring out what came next. Maya had always been someone who thrived on control. In her career as a lawyer, she was used to having all the answers, to knowing exactly what to do in every situation. But this was different. This was uncharted territory, and it made her feel vulnerable in a way she hadn't expected. Riley, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. She didn't push Maya to define their relationship or rush into anything. Instead, she let things unfold naturally, giving Maya the space she needed to process her feelings. One evening, about a week after their conversation, Maya found herself sitting in Riley's apartment, sipping tea and trying to make sense of the emotion swirling inside her. Riley was sitting across from her, sketching something in her notebook, probably a new design for one of her projects. Maya watched her for a moment, admiring the way Riley's brow furrowed in concentration, the way her hand moved so fluidly across the page. There was something calming about being around Riley, something that made Maya feel like she didn't have to have all the answers. "Hey," Riley said, glancing up from her sketch. "You okay? You've been quiet tonight." Maya hesitated, unsure of how to put her thoughts into words. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking." Riley set her notebook aside, giving Maya her full attention. "About what?" Maya sighed, running a hand through her hair. "About us. About how this is all so new for me. I've never been in a relationship like this before, and I guess I'm just nervous." Riley smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "I get it. It's new for me too, in a way. But we don't have to figure everything out right now. We can take it one step at a time." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "I know. I don't want to mess this up." "You won't," Riley said firmly. "We'll figure it out together. And if we hit a bump in the road, we'll deal with it. That's what relationships are about, right?" Maya smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Yeah. I guess you're right." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of Maya's worries slowly lifting. Riley had a way of making everything seem simpler, of reminding Maya that she didn't have to have all the answers right away. "Do you want to go for a walk?" Riley asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Maya raised an eyebrow. A walk? It's freezing outside. Riley grinned, standing up and grabbing her coat. Exactly. It'll wake us up. Come on, it'll be fun. Maya laughed, shaking her head as she stood up and grabbed her own coat. You're ridiculous, you know that. Riley winked. You love it. Chapter 6: A Walk in the Cold. The cold air hit Maya's face as soon as they stepped outside, but instead of retreating back into the warmth of Riley's apartment, she found herself smiling. There was something refreshing about the crisp winter air, something that made her feel alive. They walked in silence for a while, their breath visible in the cold night air. The streets were quiet, the city lights casting a soft glow over the snow-covered sidewalks. Maya found herself relaxing, the tension she had been carrying for days slowly melting away. So, Riley said after a while, breaking the silence, what's the plan for the holidays? Are you going to visit your family? Maya nodded. Yeah, I'll probably head home for a few days. My sister's been bugging me to come visit. Riley smiled. That sounds nice. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you. Maya hesitated for a moment, then glanced at Riley. What about you? Do you have any plans? Riley shrugged. Not really. My family's all spread out, so we don't usually do big holiday gatherings. I'll probably just stay here and relax. Maya felt a pang of sympathy. She couldn't imagine spending the holidays alone, especially when she knew how much Riley loved being around people. You could come with me, Maya blurted out before she could stop herself. Riley stopped walking, turning to face Maya with a surprised look on her face. What? Maya's heart raced as she realized what she had just said. I mean, if you want to. You don't have to, obviously. But if you don't have any plans, you could come with me to my family's place. They'd love to meet you. Riley's expression softened, a small smile tugging at her lips. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude. Maya shook her head. You wouldn't be intruding. I'd love for you to come. Riley's smile widened, and she reached out to take Maya's hand. Okay. I'd love to. Maya felt a surge of warmth at Riley's words, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like everything was falling into place. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: she wanted Riley to be a part of it. Chapter 7: Meeting the Family. The holidays came faster than Maya expected, and before she knew it, she and Riley were driving to her family's house for Christmas. Maya had been nervous about introducing Riley to her family, but as they pulled into the driveway, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. Her family was warm and welcoming, and she knew they would love Riley just as much as she did. As they walked up to the front door, Maya glanced at Riley, who looked surprisingly calm. You okay? Maya asked, her voice soft. Riley smiled, squeezing Maya's hand. Yeah. I'm good. Nervous, but good. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of relief. Don't worry. They're going to love you. The door opened before Maya could knock, and her sister, Emma, appeared in the doorway, grinning from ear to ear. Maya. You're here. Maya laughed as Emma pulled her into a tight hug. Of course I'm here. I told you I'd come. Emma pulled back, her eyes flicking to Riley. And this must be Riley. Riley smiled, holding out her hand. Nice to meet you. Emma shook her hand, her grin widening. Nice to meet you too. Come on in, everyone's waiting. As they stepped inside, Maya felt a wave of warmth wash over her. Their house was filled with the smell of pine and cinnamon, and the sound of laughter echoed from the living room. It was exactly how she remembered it, cozy, chaotic, and full of love. Riley fit in seamlessly with Maya's family. She charmed Maya's parents with her stories about architecture, and she bonded with Emma over their shared love of music. By the end of the night, it was clear that Riley had won everyone over. As they sat by the fire later that evening, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment. She had always been so focused on her career, on her independence, that she hadn't realized how much she had been missing. But now, with Riley by her side, she felt like she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Chapter 8: A New Year, a New Beginning. The holidays passed in a blur of laughter, food, and family, and before Maya knew it, it was New Year's Eve. She and Riley had decided to spend the evening at a small gathering with some of their friends, ringing in the new year with good company and good music. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Maya found herself standing on the balcony of the apartment, looking out at the city lights. Riley joined her a few moments later, slipping her hand into Maya's. "Hey," Riley said softly. "You okay?" Maya smiled, leaning into Riley's side. "Yeah. I'm just thinking about how much has changed this year." Riley nodded, her gaze fixed on the skyline. "Yeah. It's been a big year." Maya turned to face Riley, her heart swelling with emotion. "I'm really glad I met you." Riley smiled, her eyes soft. "Me too." As the countdown to midnight began, Maya felt a sense of excitement bubbling up inside her. This was it, a new year, a new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what the future held. When the clock struck midnight, Maya leaned in and kissed Riley, her heart full of hope and happiness. It wasn't the kind of fairy tale she had grown up reading about, but it was real. It was messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises. And it was everything she hadn't realized she wanted. The end.